Alright, hello everybody. I'm just going to check if everything sounds okay, so hopefully you can hear the mic decently and, audio is sensible levels. I'll crank that later if we need to actually hear stuff. So yeah, just give me a yell if all of that sounds good. Otherwise we'll start off with some of the stuff in the new firmware. Good to hear. Alright, so everything sounds okay. Sorry, there will be random clicking at some points. The building heats up during the day, so the roof makes clicking noises and birds. Also, one of the questions I've got there that's easy to answer is when things will be shipping. Mostly we're shipping around about 3 weeks since you ordered. So yeah, mostly they're fitting that kind of structure at the moment. We're still in lockdown here in Melbourne, so there are minor challenges with that, but we're still getting the units out pretty much as on time. If you're going to order right now, then you might be able to get a unit quicker from a dealer, as I just shipped out some dealer units last week to Perfect Circuit and Vintage Key. So they'll get them probably the end of this week. But yeah, if you're in, all of the first batch has gone out, and I think nearly all of the second batch has gone out, or the other ones that'll be going out, in the next day or two. So Joe and I are usually spending most of the day shipping units at the moment, which means firmware updates haven't been quite as quick lately. But that'll probably continue. Basically, I'm probably going to spend 1 or 2 days a week working on firmware stuff, and the rest of the time I'm just making stuff. Cool. So yeah, I'm just going to run through some of the new stuff in the latest firmware, and answer any questions people have had. One constant question is how to do more stuff with Midi. I've got a BeatStep Pro connected up at the moment, so I can show that. That's just connected through the USB here, but I can show it connected through the normal 3.5mm ports as well, and I can show things coming in and out. I've just got a pretty basic setup here as far as modules go. I've got a filter here that I can show controlling from here, from Hector, and I've got a subharmonicon here that I can use to control and have sounds from, and a mini brute to S. So I can show things from all of those ones and internal sounds as well. The main change in the latest firmware is obviously performance. So if you add things now, it's much zippier. And when you do connections, it's just much quicker now. So that's pretty instant now. I was doing something stupid in some of the previous code. So you see those kind of things. It's much quicker to do that now. So yeah, oops, not that entertaining, I'll take that down. Everything is much faster as far as connections go. There are still a few places where I can optimize things more, so I might still be able to improve a few things. There's just there's one thing in my code that I noticed in my drawing code that was actually way slower than it should have been, that I didn't notice in previous looks through profiling it. So I can check if there's anywhere else that I'm doing kind of similar things, and I might be able to speed a few other things up. Actually, loading the delay is still really, really slow because I use a different way of drawing this thing. When we go into this milliseconds, that's drawn in a different way than everything else is. So that's actually really slow to get in and out of. All the other modules should be quicker to get into, basically, than that one, even the ones with more complicated user interfaces. But yeah, I'm going to continue improving some of those things. Yeah, which is, sometimes I'll spend time doing that, sometimes I'll spend time actually adding new stuff. Other things that were new in the latest firmware apart from performance, Granular has its reverb slider back, which a few people had asked about, so it's now got size on a dedicated slider, and reverb still here, so you can turn reverb all the way off because it's kind of garbage, or you can leave it on in ranges in between. So this is the port of Mutable Instruments Clouds. So yeah, that's now easy to add. So that's, yeah, you can add those easily now and control that. One of the other major things, well, for some people will be if we go into our Midi clock in, that now has triggers. So you'll see it's got 3 outputs now. One of which will be something that triggers when you start, when there's a Midi start or a Midi continue, and the other one is a gate that's whether it's running or not. So this will just make things easier to sync some of the modules to Midi as far as start and stop goes. And one of the other things in the new firmware was the basic reverb, which I can show here. So it's actually got quite a few settings for a basic reverb, but it's an algorithmic reverb, so you can get much longer delay time, much longer reverb tails than you can with a convolution. I'd still recommend convolution for most stuff as far as audio quality goes. I just prefer convolution. But the advantage of this one is that you can dial in all of these parameters. So it's very flexible as far as things you can dial in with a basic reverb. I can show a little bit of that in action. I'll pull this delay out, and we'll go for something really blanky. We'll go for that, and then we can feed that into the reverb. So it's got lots of options as far as size and things like that go. We can make that brighter or darker quite easily. And there's pre-delay, which obviously you can get different sounding size rooms. Yeah, pretty easily pull in different sounds with that. So yeah, that's how one gets sounds out of that. Sorry, the building is making random noises, so there's lots of random noises in the background. I can show some external sounds into that as well. We'll just pull this one out of here, and I'll grab a patch lead, and I've grabbed the longest patch lead in the world. Grab one of those. We'll hear some external stuff out through it. So that's our dry sound from the subharmonicon. Obviously you can get very dense if you want as well. And you can have very long delay decays. Which shall become very dense. See that very nice long tails there if you need them. Ooh. So they're kind of some of the major new modules in 3.16. There's also a bunch of new modules I haven't shown since the last stream, like the Euclidean sequencer and things like that. And so there's, you know, lots and lots of other modules around. If there's any specific questions about any of them that people are confused with, otherwise I can show some stuff, how to link, you know, I've shown Midi quite a few times in the previous videos, but if there's any confusion around that. One of the things with Midi is that both Beebo and Hector will work with as host mode for Midi. So you just plug in any Midi controller, and if it's USB class compliant, it'll just work. You just plug it in and it will just appear in as the standard Midis here. So you'll just need to connect up the Midi if it's something like notes, something like that, something where you want to generate a CV out from it. But for learn, then you just can click learn. Like we can just go into any one of these ones and hold them like that, hold the dots and then press the thing and then hit Midi learn. And then it'll let us learn them. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I have the Midi keyboard slightly out of reach. So yeah, that'll let us learn these. I just turn the knob and now that can change. And it says here which CC it bound to. CC 74 is the knob I bound that to. So that's not actually connected up to anything at the moment, but so that's how you can bind things to Midi at the moment. And yeah, it'll work the same over the 3.5mm in and outs. So the 3.5mm in and outs on Hector are standard Midi modern type A. So they'll connect up to things like the subharmonicon, which is type A, straight away. It won't connect up to the BeatStep Pro because it's type B, not standard Midi. The Beebo is a bit more confusing because I made it to work with Chase Bliss stuff, and then I made a mistake switching it to type A, so it's got type A inputs and type B outputs on recent models. Just going to glance if there's any questions. Cool. All right. Give me a yell if you do have any specific questions on the way. Keen to answer any of them. But yeah, I can show some other basic patch building. I'd be keen to know if anybody's more keen to see some more Hector features, like controlling external stuff from the CVs or being controlled from CVs, or just stuff that works for Beebo and Hector. There's a few little things that are different between the two. If you are getting into the Hector, the main one is that any of these inputs and outputs, they're all at audio rate, so they'll do CV or audio from all of them. So when you connect something from an external input, say we've got the Chaos controller here. If I connect 3 up to something, see how it asks me all of these CV inputs? Because it'll let me connect to anything, a CV or an audio. The Chaos controller's only got CV ins, but if there's something that has both, it'll let me connect up to either of them. So that's you can connect up anything like that. So triggers for syncing stuff, or gates, or any CV controls, or the audio's in. And you can connect those as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an audio in or a CV in that you're connecting. Some things, obviously the basic Reverb has no external controls at all as far as CV does at the moment. If there are any particular stuff you want me to be able to CV control from it, just give me a yell. You can, of course, use the same tricks that you use with the convolution reverb, and I'll just show some of them. So one of the common tricks I use with the convolution reverb, I'll just add it. I should have just looked through reverb, shouldn't I? Mono reverb. You can also favorite modules now, which makes things easier. So it'll ask me these two questions here, because I'm routing from an external one. So that would be the normal way you'd connect up the reverb. And I'll choose a real space here. I'll choose the pool of the black stuff because it's fantastic. So you're here right now. I actually only have the wet signal. I don't have any dry at all. So I'll have to route dry separately. And now I've got both. So people pretty constantly ask why that is the case. And the main reason for that, being only one of the other, is so you can have different effects on the tail and the send of the reverb. So for instance, let's set up if you really actually want a particular wet-dry mix, you can add a wet-dry mixer at the end. So I'll add a wet-dry mixer. There isn't much under W, so we'll just add a mono wet-dry at the end. We'll connect this up to wet, this one up to dry. See, this is nice and zippy now. Now we've got a wet-dry. But we can put, say, a phaser or something on the end of this one, the output of that. So we'll disconnect that output. And then if we add a phaser, we'll just add the basic. Actually, no, we'll add phaser X. So anything with an X in its name is one of the basic effects. The more guitar-orientated ones are just called phaser, and they have an internal LFO or an internal control of some type. And then there's the ones that have X in their name. They'll take in an external control, so we can use the chaos controller to control this phaser. So we'll connect up the phaser. We'll connect that up to wet. It's not doing anything very exciting yet, but we'll connect up one of these. Now it'll start doing fun stuff. We'll make that a little bit more zoomy. So now with that phaser is just on the reverb signal, and it's not on our dry. We can also, a common technique is to cut some of the bass out that we're running. My signal currently isn't super bassy, but I can chuck some more bass in there. Often you'll have a filter, a high-pass filter, on the way to the reverb, on the send to the reverb, and that'll let you have a less boomy sound in your reverbs. That's a pretty common technique. So it's easy to patch that kind of stuff up. So that's why those are kind of delineated like that. So I have a question that's, what about the older Beebos? I assume that's relation to the Midi in and outs. So the first Beebos, or any of the older ones, there's serial numbers listed on the website. The earlier ones are type B in and out. So that's the same as Chase Bliss or Arturia. Okay, somebody has asked about Euclidean sequencer, so let's Euclidean sequence. Yeah, let's Euclidean sequence some stuff. We'll get rid of some of these guys for the moment. And you can go too. Yep. I'm sorry if my shoulder keeps ending up in this shot. I'll try and avoid that. So yeah, we're just having inputs here. We'll show the Euclidean sequencer doing a few things. I'll start with drums because it's really obvious. The Euclidean sequence with drums. So add the Euclidean. We'll add 2 of the macros. We'll duplicate those. Duplicate is a very handy feature. So I've got 2 macro oscillators. We'll connect up these to trigger on them. It's a very simple case, but I'll show you some more complicated with it as well. Trigger 1 out to trigger CV in. Now trigger, I just realized I'm probably covering the screen 2 out. Trigger 2 out to trigger CV. So we've got the triggers connected, triggers from this to this. Now, we might have a separate sim for our drums. We'll have a VCA so we can control the level of our drums versus everything else. So let's have the out go to there and the out go to there. You'll see there's an auxiliary and a main out on the macro oscillator. If we go into it, it says down here what the auxiliary out is. So it varies for each of the things. See, it says on this one, 2 oscillator FM, auxiliary out is a sub oscillator. And sometimes they're fun things that you can use to modulate stuff in other ways from like these ones are the shape, so it's the actual, the shape used by basically the envelope used by the different drums. Whereas exciter signal from the modal one. And yeah, dust noise or something like that. So you can do some fun things with those. So let's have a kick. And snare. 1 or 2. And we'll connect them up to 1. Now we're going to want to have something that triggers the Euclidean. So either I could route a clock from one of my other things here, from the subharmonicon or the mini brute here, or an LFO somewhere else in my system or something like that, or maybe even from this sec I could divide using it, which I might show. But I'll start off, I'll just show using an internal module. So let's just grab the LFO. So we'll set an LFO. We don't care about any of these settings. They'll all work fine. And we'll set that to step trigger. You see it's starting to move its things. And it's desperately boring at the moment. So let's make that more interesting. We'll go up to 8 steps for this one and 8 steps for this one. And then we'll shift these. So we can shift this guy across. Oh yeah, sorry, we'll keep that on. We'll keep this one on at 8. And we'll tune our kick down a little bit so it sounds like an actual kick. The nice thing about this being a synth rather than samples is that you can tune all this. sensible sounds now. Oh yeah, the basic thing about this one is that it's got this built-in curves here. So it's got a built-in, basically a thing that you can use to modulate some of the other things. So this low-pass gate internally, we can use it if we haven't got any other controls connected up to mod some of the parts. You see that's changing that now because we've got those mods connected up. But obviously we can modify any of these parameters from internal gear or external gear or other modulators. So any CV generator like an LFO or a sequencer. That's a really basic example. Some of the other interesting things are that it's got these is the one outputs. So we can use them to do something interesting on the one of the cycle. So, you know, when it gets to the first beat, it'll do something. So we can do something like add an envelope on that one. So something different is done on the one. Or we could step through another sequencer. Actually, let's show that. So if I add a step sequencer X, oh, I pressed the wrong thing, not that one. If we add a step sequencer X, this one, that will take in triggers from something else. So let's draw some lines so you can see what's going on. So that's not moving because we don't have anything connected up to it. But if we connect the is the one output up to step trigger, you see each time it gets to the end of the bar, so every 8 beats, or eight steps, because we've got 8 steps in the kick pattern, and 4 of those beats are active, it'll step through these. So we can now use that to control something, so this setup isn't as consistent. We can use that CV out to control something else. So let's control something on the macro oscillator from that. Morph maybe. And now let's set. So it's not going to be doing anything yet because we haven't set up the morph mod. See, it does it'll sound different each time we get through these steps. Now, sounds a bit hectic. Let's put that right down. So now the pattern is much more, evolving over time. So that's how you can use the is the one. You can also stack things with that, because you could have the is the one from this triggering a different Euclidean if you want more complicated, longer patterns to evolve. So yeah, we've got those things, all going on now. So that's basically how to use the step sequencer. Obviously, yeah, I showed here an external LFO. But let's disconnect that guy. Nothing's going to happen now because we're not connected up to anything. And let's grab an unused input. I'm not using 3 for anything. So 3 to step trigger. And I'll grab a sensible length cable. And you little buggers. Yep. Now, as I trigger, we'll have things happening. You'll go for the next step. And we can also, it's a bit hectic. So we've got patterns coming from that. We can also go from the clock out of that instead of the trigger. Turn this guy right down. So yeah. Again, it's evolving due to our thing on the step trigger here. Step sequencer. Those can be hectic sometimes, so. Yep. So there, that's connecting it up to an external clock, using an internal clock, and using it to modify a step sequencer from the Euclidean. So yeah, you can then make the Euclidean generate melodies by using a quantizer after the step sequencer, which we could show as well. Cool. So yeah, hopefully that answers most of the questions about the basic use of the Euclidean. Obviously, you can turn off some of the tracks if you don't want them taking up visual room in here. It'll also silence them in the outputs. So we could use one of these other ones to have a hi-hat or something easily enough. Like we just need to duplicate one of these. Or we could have a melody from some of the other ones. If we go, oops, no, let's have, not use the one, trigger 3 out to that one, and then trigger. Again, this is all pretty straightforward to out, and then we can have hi-hats from there. We've got hi-hats every beat now. It's the other one, so on the fours. So you can start doing more fun things by creating I wonder why they did another. So we went on steps. This one. By different patterns, so they continuously kind of evolve against each other, like that. Obviously, the drum pattern generator can be used for the drum pattern generator can be used for any of these ones as well, the drum triggers. So that's perfect for this kind of stuff, obviously, for drum triggers, but the Euclidean's much more flexible about as far as things that you can set up. And yeah, as I said, quantize if you want to have a melody out of it. And we could, of course, connect some of them up to a reverb if we wanted to have a reverb send in here. Disconnect our input. We could drag our reverb over here. So just dragging stuff around is pretty zippy now. or we could have a gated reverb on our snares. So yeah, that's some of the basics as far as you know, everything with the Euclidean. Obviously, if you've got something like the Chaos controller, you can combine that with that in case you want some elements to have some kind of more controlled interplay, and the same with the step sequencer external. You can have them be triggered by the different generators, either clocks or chaos or something like that, if you want irregular patterns. So then they'd kind of more just control density rather than actual, you know, rhythm or something. Yeah, and obviously you can connect more things up to modulate any of these things to make them more interesting, either internal or external. And all of this is the same on, apart from the clocks in and out, all of this is the same on Hector and Beebo. If you want to get an external clock in from Beebo, then the way to do that is via Midi, and we can show that too. I'll just glance if there are questions. All right. Yeah, I can show that. Okay, so yeah, I'll just show this from a external clock instead from Midi. So we'll just disconnect the input to this one, our input. We'll add an LFO. And then we'll add a MIDI clock in, MIDI clock in. So the MIDI connects to the MIDI, and then we've got tempo can go into the air, tempo can go into the LFO. So tempo is what we want, BPM, tempo. So now the tempo of the LFO will be set from MIDI, and then the LFO can go into set trigger. So now if I control this from the external one, we can control tempo from our external clock. So we can turn that right down or have it at sensible rates. So yeah, we've cranked that tempo down to something super low from the external controller over here. And so yeah, now that's following that clock. You can see tempo up here. Oh, one other thing. If you want a multiplier or a divider of that tempo, you can set that up here too. So yeah, that's the thing. If you set up a tempo multiplier that's very high, you can sync to it, and then it's very, very fast. So if we want to set that back to a single unit, the easy way to do it is get to here and then hit reset to default. Now we're tracking the external one. You'll see the tempos moving around. So we'll track that external tempo. Now it's tracking the knob here. Before I told it to track external tempo and I wasn't sending an external tempo, which was confusing me. But now you'll see that track this tempo from the external knob. Some MIDI. multipliers for different tempo ratios and stuff as well. If you want to have multiple different LFOs and things like that going at tempo ratios. Or you can do that with the tempo ratio module as well, the tempo divider. So just replying to some of the comments or questions. I don't know anything about screen protectors. I have the random little piece of plastic on here at the moment. I would recommend mostly removing that. That's just for shipping. But I haven't actually tested any screen protectors for it. I mean, any mobile phone ones should work, but I haven't tested any of them. So I don't know if they're like how they change responsiveness or anything. If you find one that works well for you, if you could share it on the Facebook group or the other forums, that would be good. But yeah, I haven't used one personally. What's the sample rate? It's 48 kilohertz. Yeah, which is good for humans, not so handy for bats. Yeah, so everything's running at 48 kilohertz. The CV program processing and the audio processing. So yeah, it's all at the same sample rate. Yeah, all at 48 kilohertz. Screen sleep time. Yeah, I previously haven't thought about it because I just have my pedals or modular on when I'm actually using it, so I haven't ever needed screen sleep. But I have had a few people request it, so it's not a hard thing for me to do. The only thing I'm a bit worried about is people, not realizing that it's in sleep instead of off because it doesn't have any external lights or anything apart from it. Like, there's no other lights on the screen apart from the screen itself. So maybe I could do some kind of screensaver that's mostly dark and has like little spots that with the logo or something that maneuvers around. I'll try and take some inspiration from 90s screensaver design, work something out there. Yeah, it's just something I haven't thought of, so I haven't done it yet. Pitch to CV. I can show pitch to CV. There's nothing super exciting in pitch to CV. It's not super relevant with the things I've got here because I've got the synths that all send Midi and pitch. So yeah, pitch to CV is just the main things with pitch to CV to work out. If you are using pitch to CV, I would try using the onset detector first and connect that up to a trigger and see if the onsets are triggered when your actual note starts are. Because the main thing you need to set correctly for the pitch to CV is to make sure it finds the onsets correctly, which is all about making sure it knows the the level it needs for when something is on and the level it needs for when something is off. The thing that's really confusing is the detecting when off is, because you know, any signal, especially from a guitar or something like that, is going to have a noise floor, and so you want to make sure that you set the off high enough that, you know, the end of a note will be still maybe captured, but it cuts off at a time that makes the notes sensibly short. And you might want to cut some of those tails off more if you want the tracking to be a bit faster, so you can tune that. So that's going to be the main thing to work out with pitch to CV, is making sure that you tune your levels. And you can do that with the onset detector more easily, because then you're not confused by pitch, you're just checking out where the onsets are. And then once that's correct, then worry about making sure it puts out the right pitches. Again, it'll track the higher notes faster than it'll track lower notes. That's the same with any pitch tracker, basically, because they're quicker to, you recognize the cycles quicker on a high note. But it should work relatively low down as well. Okay, Jason, I don't know what your question means, because you've said you want to build a new case for your Beebo. Can you get a Hector screen for it? The screens are the same. They come out of the same box. Yeah, they are the same screens. So yeah, you can use them the same. They're both in a big box behind me. So yeah, just they're the same. Okay. So yeah, we've shown MIDI clock syncing to something. We can show how you divide that up. We can show, maybe we'll show some controlling some of this stuff from the Chaos controller, if that's fun, or something like that. So if, is there other questions? Yeah, okay. Cosmic, yeah, I'm not sure what the issue is you're having with presets. You can delete presets if you've imported and exported them under different names or something. You might be getting some weirdness. I haven't had any reports apart from your ones for anybody getting duplicate presets. It might be something that you'll have to delete the old ones and import them in a single place. That's pretty fiddly though. Yeah, if you... I could add a button to settings if you want that just deletes all the presets, and then you can export them and re-import them. That might be the easiest approach. Something like that. So I'll just glance at questions for 1 second and see if there's anything else. And then I'll probably show some CV out stuff. I'm a thirsty little human. So yeah, I'll just glance at questions for 1 sec. Cool. Yeah, hopefully I've got most of the major ones there. All right, let's show some other stuff, because we're getting a bit sick of this drum beat. Let's mute you for the moment. Cool. Let's keep some of these macro oscillators and this Euclidean, but we'll make them do different patterns. I'm not doing anything with this wet dry. Okay. We can keep this MIDI synced. Oh, well, actually, We don't need that anymore. We'll just let it go from internal sync. And we might try some melody stuff instead. So let's connect up a chaos controller. Oh, actually, this is an idea. Okay. So for extra weirdness points, we'll connect up our chaos controller. So T2 out is the regular out, the clock that is regular out of the out of chaos controller. T1 and T3 are the more, interesting clocks. So I'll set this to step, and now this one will be stepping from the chaos controller. If we set that to 1, we'll get this one stepping at the tempo that the chaos controller is set to. So now this is stepping from the chaos controller's tempo. And then this is stepping on the 1s from the other one, so it steps quite slowly, steps on the 1s. We could have that step from the chaos controller as well if we wanted to. So let's connect. Might just have snare, bass, snare, and melody. So we'll trigger this one on a melody instead. So we'll have we'll disconnect it there and connect it up to T3 to trigger, and we'll also connect up the X3 to volt per octave. So now it's going to get the pitches from this. We'll start with that, and then we'll see if we can make things more exciting. Then I think we'll pull this step sequencer down to this as well, so we can have longer evolving things off this one. So we might do that. We'll just disconnect that from there for the moment. And then we'll choose maybe waveform oscillator. And we'll crank our levels back up. So you notice we're getting all the same notes basically at the moment, so we want to put our spread up. We've set it to 2 octaves and have some spread, so it's going to be bouncing around. We just distributions in the middle, so it's going to be using all notes equally. These settings are massively confusing, and I'm going to improve them in the near future. Basically, it does continuous pitches down here. And this one, it does stepped pitches. And as you get closer to here, it starts to quantize to the scale. So we're going to show some of the scale now. We'll start quantizing to the minor scale. That macro oscillator sounds a bit boring. Do chords as well. Let's do 2 operator FM. So one of the real spaces in here is the actual room I'm in right now, which is Coburg Workshop, which we recorded. There's a video of us doing that on Instagram and Facebook, and it's huge. Cool. So chuck some reverb on that one. I kind of want a delay on that as well to make it a bit more interesting. So, I'll go for the basic delay and then I'll contemplate twist delay. Twist delay is a much more fun delay. Move everything a little bit further across to the side so I got a bit more room. So, let's connect this one up to the out of that one. Filter that delay a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. All right, now we have this step sequencer external. If it's on the 1 of this pattern here, let's start controlling the macro oscillator with it. So, more for timbre, I think, maybe. We'll need to turn up mod for the morph. So I've got some morph mod going on. You can see how that changed quite a lot in there. So now the pattern will slowly evolve over time and have some, variation to it, but things that we've controlled. And if we go into here, we can actually see what morph does. So morph's a generic name for each of the modules, which all of the modules in MacroOS have for their inputs and outputs. But if we go into here, we'll see what it actually does, which is feedback. So maybe timbre's more fun, or harmonics. Yeah, I reckon morph still isn't a bad option. So yeah, there's some options there. Richard, parameter sliders do move when receiving a Midi control. I will show you that. For our snare, maybe. So let's bind one of these to Midi. K time is fun for snares. So let's bind that to Midi. Midi. You see it's changing the number here, and if we go back to here, you'll see the slider changes with Midi. And I turn the knob. Hopefully I'm out of the shot. And you'll see that moves with Midi. Oh yeah, and I am going to do Midi node out soon for people that want to trigger things from the Chaos controller and stuff to external Midi devices instead of to CV stuff. Obviously, yeah, you can get CV out from Hector at the moment out of all of its outputs for Octave. But yeah, if you want Midi node out, yeah, it is on the list to do. I have started. Yeah, you can. As far as a MIDI looper, yeah, you can't loop MIDI at the moment, but you can loop CV. So you can loop CV fine. So you can loop like volt or octave or gate signals. Yeah, I'm gonna start adding more visualization in places where I can. Obviously, the more things I have drawing and the more things I have changing, the less CPU you have for actual audio processing. Audio processing always gets priority, so that's why you'll see that the interface just gets laggier the more audio stuff you're doing, but the audio still doesn't drop out. And that's because they've got priority, and that works to a level. Obviously, when you're getting close to 100% CPU, there's just nothing that you can do. Oh, and the CPU meter is garbage, and it will always be, because I just don't think there's an easy way to make that work in a sensible way. Because there's 4 different cores, often you'll get paths that you add a new module, and it'll say, oh, it's using 60% CPU. You add a new module, and then it'll say, still using 60% CPU. And that's just because it's using one of the other cores that isn't fully utilized. And even if I showed each core usage, you wouldn't really be able to tell when you add a new module whether it could fit on one of the other cores, because it will depend on how you're ordering the modules. I haven't really shown anything with Looper and syncing that. Yeah, you can send MIDI things to trigger that. I'll do a video where I'll use it more as a sampler. So I'll record a few different beats and things into each of the into different tracks, and then I'll trigger it from the Euclidean or the Chaos controller. I have a plan to do that. Beatbox noises and then trigger them. Rafa, I'm not sure what you mean about positive negative indicators. Do you just mean like inputs and outputs showing something? If so, that's the same kind of thing. I would like to be able to do it. I just don't know about CPU usage. If you do want to see the value of a CV though, just hey, I want to see what's going on with this particular CV. There is the CV meter, which I probably haven't talked about. It was added relatively recently. So if we chuck this in here, if we connect up X3 to it, it'll show us, see how it's showing us the CV changing each time it changes. And then we can get to show information about the levels. Which levels it's moving between and stuff like that. So that can be helpful when you're trying to work out, why things are going in and out in particular ways, especially from external gear. There isn't any audio metering, that's only for CV. So if you're trying to connect up audio to it, it's not useful because it shows instantaneous values. Whereas an audio meter, you're going to want to have, RMS or, averaging and things like that, peak hold, all those kind of stuff. I do want to add some audio meters in there as well. And I have most of the code for that done actually. I just need to make it look pretty. But I don't know what the ordering is that's going to be and how long. I wouldn't say it's going to be super soon though. So yeah, if you want to ask final questions now, otherwise that's probably going to be the end of general plans. yeah, so unless there's any final things, oh yeah, I've got the reverb only going to, oh no, I've got it both, don't worry. Yeah, extra reverb. This space is pretty huge. We can go back to a sensible size space. You notice I just have the delay on the direct bit. I don't have it on the reverb, so let's route some reverb into the delay. We'll get some extra weirdness there. I could also route the delay into the reverb the opposite way around. But yeah, so yeah, I'll just check for final questions, and then I think that'll be the end of today's stream. I'll just sit. Yeah, you can trigger the record button in the looper with CV. Just use the CV to Midi CC converter, and then use the external CV, the extra Midi in. Sorry. So yes, convert CV to Midi, and then use the extra Midi in on the looper. Then you can bind anything in the looper to Midi. That's kind of why I did that, and having it instead of the looper having extra CV inputs, just because I wanted it to have, you know, as many as you want, basically be able to bind anything, and it's got so many different commands, so it wasn't really easy to have plugs for all the CVs for it. So instead I've just had it how you have to convert to MIDI, which for that kind of stuff it doesn't you know, you're not going to need more resolution than that has for any of the looper actions anyway. Would features like snapshots ever be possible? As far as ones for sets of values and sets of things being on and off, yeah, it would be possible. And it's something I'd like to think about doing. I just haven't done it yet. But it's on the list of things to do. Same as I also want to have per module favorites, basically. Like, so if you often want the chaos controller to be set up in a particular way or something like that, you can reuse it. That might be in the context of sub-modules, so you can connect up, you know, you can group a set of modules as a sub-module. That's something I want to work on in the future as well. But those are like longer term plans, and I'm not sure when they're going to happen. Okay. So, unless there are any final questions, I think that's probably going to be the end of today's stream. Let's pull this one into this output over here. This one into this input. Yep, so cool. Yep, I think that'll be the end of today's stream. So yeah, you can always ask follow-up questions anywhere else on either in any of the forums. One thing I'd like to know which yeah, you can post on Facebook or something about, or on our Instagram or anything, is whether people would like dedicated forums. A few people have asked about it, or if we should use some other way for, communicating. As far as, should we have a forum on Modwiggler, or is the Facebook group the best approach, or something else? But yeah, thanks for checking out the stream. I hope you've enjoyed, and hopefully it has been vaguely useful. Right. Well, we will see you on the next stream.